Hello everyone and welcome to an incredible game that happened yesterday on chess.com between Jon Ludwig Hammer and Magnus Carlsen. It's really a spectacular game. Both of them are Norwegian. I think they're also friends. I don't know to what extent, but I believe they are. You all know Magnus. He's the world champion of everything, world champion of classical blitz and rapid chess. And Jon Ludwig Hammer, he is third highest rated player in Norway behind Magnus Carlsen and Ari Antari. And this game is absolutely spectacular. I already said that, but it truly is. And one moment of pure carelessness allows Hammer to really execute a beautiful checkmating sequence. I chose the happiest photo I could find of Hammer for this video. I imagine he was much happier than this, but this is the best I could do. So imagine him much happier as you are watching this game, especially as the game progresses past a certain point. So let's check it out. Hammer with the white pieces opens with e4. Magnus goes for his signature g6, the Robatsch defense or the modern defense. d4, we have e6, knight to f3, and now there are a lot of moves that can be played here. Magnus chooses one that has never been played before. Already on move 3, we have a completely new game. Magnus goes for knight to e7. Now let's see how Hammer deals with this novelty. He goes for h4, and of course, why wouldn't you? You already have a target on g6. Magnus plays h6, and now bishop to f4. Nicely developing pieces with bishop to g7, and now queen to d2. That makes sense. You prevent Magnus from castling as the h6 pawn is now a target. We have d5 by Magnus, e5. Jon Ludwig grabs more space in the center, and Magnus strikes against the center with pawn to c5. We have c3, and now knight b to c6. Magnus nicely continues development. Knight to a3, now with ideas of maybe bringing the knight over to d6, and while you might expect something like a6 here, Magnus plays this completely different. He goes king to f8, and now he is basically inviting the knight to come to d6. But Ludwig, I imagine, trusted Magnus. He just continues the game. D captures on c5. It's a free pawn, so why not? And Magnus gives up another one to help with the development of his pieces. So c captures on b6, queen captures, and now bishop to d3. Preparing to put more pressure on that king side. Bishop to a6, trying to trade off white's a very strong light square bishop, and Hammer goes for b4. He's preparing b5 to win material here, but the problem is Hammer has a lot of pieces on weird squares. The bishop on f4 is weird, and the knight on a3 is weird, and that's what allows Magnus to just ignore his threat, and he plays d4. Now the problem is this doesn't work, but it's very hard to see why. Hammer goes for b5, he goes for the attack on the bishop and the knight, and now just d captures on c3, attacking Magnus's queen, Hammer's queen, and what Hammer should do here is play queen to e2. He played queen to e3. He offered a queen trade because why wouldn't you, as both of the pieces are hanging? But queen to e2 is actually the correct move here. It's a really fun line because now after knight to d4, okay, you save one piece. Let's say knight captures, queen captures, and now the bishop on f4 will be hanging as well. But the problem is there's bishop to e3, attacks the queen, and now you have to play queen to a4. You have to capture on a6, queen captures on a3, and now you just castle, and you have a much better, if not straight out winning position with white, as the black king is in a terrible square on f8. But okay, it's a blitz game. Queen to e3 was played, and here Magnus just goes for knight to d5. He attacks the queen, forces a queen trade, which also attacks the bishop on f4. That's why I said the pieces were on, well, maybe suboptimal squares. Queen captures on b6, a captures on b6, and now just b captures on a6, grabbing that bishop. But now Magnus is very happy. He captures on f4, threatens to capture the bishop on d3. Bishop to e4 is played, attacking the knight. Also, the knight cannot move, and now just the rook captures on a6 by Magnus. And now Hammer's knight on a3 is also hanging. So bishop captures on c6. We have rook captures on a3, and now Hammer just castles queenside. And now, if you look at the position, okay, Magnus's king is still on f8, but it's not really that big of a deal. He can just put the king on h7 and bring the rook into the game, or so you would think. Magnus starts with king to g8, and Hammer goes with the immediate rook to d8 d8 with check. And now Magnus goes into a moment of complete carelessness, and he plays king to h7. The problem is you have to block this with bishop to f8, and then the game continues. You also have the passed c pawn, so objectively black's position is completely winning here. However, Magnus puts his king on h7, and he completely overlooks something spectacular. It's actually a forced mate in 11 for Hammer. So feel free to pause the video here and try to find this idea while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on spotting the exact mate in 11, although it's really unnecessary. Black would have to give up a whole lot of unnecessary material to survive 11 moves. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is knight to g5 with check. This is the move that Magnus missed. And he probably thought, okay, he can just play knight to h5. If g4, it's not a problem, but it just doesn't work for a very specific reason. And that specific reason has to be pronounced in French. And now we have h captures on g5. This is the only move for Magnus. You cannot move the king. H captures on g5 opens up a discovery from the rook. So the king, again, no squares. You can play bishop to h6. It's a bit of a sturdier defense, but you know, the end result will be the same. Here Magnus plays knight to h5, and now also the move that most likely Magnus missed in all of this madness when he played king to h7. Probably expecting g4, but that would be good for black, but Ludwig just goes for rook captures on h5. With check, leaving Magnus with only two options, and none of them are really good. If you play bishop to h6, it's a matter of simple rook captures on h6 check, king to g7, rook d captures on h8, and you will not be able to stop checkmate on the next move. So Magnus, of course, accepts the rook, g captures on h5 was played, and now look at this, bishop to e4 with check, leaving Magnus with only one move, and that is pawn to f5, and now, of course, you all know what's coming, a beautiful en passant checkmate, and not even with g captures on f6. Remember, if you give up the h6 square, then the king can come to h6, but here Hammer just played e captures on f6 en passant, and of course this is now checkmate. You cannot go to h6, you cannot go to g8, and the bishop delivers checkmate. So you capture a pawn and deliver a beautiful bishop checkmate. So Magnus suffered some big losses in the past, and he even was on the receiving end of some very interesting checkmates, but I do not believe he ever suffered one quite like this. So that's why I said I tried to find the happiest photo of Hammer possible, but like I said, I imagine he was much happier when he played this, and he tweeted right after that on Twitter, "I just beat Magnus with an en passant checkmate. I just peaked considering retirement," as whoever does this probably is, but of course he's probably not going to retire. But I mean, it's definitely not easy to top this. You didn't just you know, beat a checkmate, a grandmaster in this fashion. You defeated the world champion of everything, of classical, rapid, and blitz chess, and there's just no topping that. How do you top this? That's it for Jon Ludwig Hammer, and I wish him all the best. And you know, it will be hard for him to find excitement in life after this, but I guess it was worth it. So that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I wish everyone achieves something like this at least once in their life. It's a very special moment. I would like to thank Rabbit7, Yun Young, Anonym No Mittens, and Ravishing Reptiles YouTube for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. Thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.